opposition, my friend, is like a cricket match being fought. Players trying to lick down the batsmen and out down the whole side for naught. But the true Kaisonian must stay detached. He must stand up and watch the match for the Kaiso art. Say, you can't take part. That's why I ain't bowling ball for nobody. I ain't feeling for no side papi. I ain't batting to please UNC. I ain't planning to make no century. My role is to point out who's chucking, who's holding the arm and tilting. So when you see Chalky up here, you're watching a man who fear. And when Rowley bowling camera, I am the umpire. Like growling tiger and Lord Beginner, I'm walking in the footsteps of Attila. I am the umpire. In Kaiso, I'm the umpire. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my panelists, other panelists, Dr. Phillips. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to talk, because in Trinidad, people invite me to sing. Foreigners invite me to talk. So whenever I get a chance to talk in Trinidad, regardless if they pay me or not, I usually come. And we are talking about language, and I shall stick to the calypso. But in culture, I have a daughter who is a lawyer, and I always keep telling her that all the time, that in law, you have to have an understanding of culture. In fact, all our songs, our dance, our storytelling, etc., deal with the culture of the country. And you can't have law in the courts without arriving at culture. You can't arrive at who's guilty and who's not guilty unless you understand the culture of the country. I picked it up very early because when Indians came to Trinidad, many of them lost their land in India because they couldn't speak English. And many of them came down here and they lost many cases in the courthouse because they were ignorant of the English language. And these are facts. And there was a guy called Maggie who used to write on the papers. If you're old like me, Maggie used to write on the papers, but Maggie used to specialize in culture. Everything cultural. There was once he had a case with a Sukoya fighting a Lajables. A woman is a Sukoya, the man is a Lajables, and they're fighting and they go to court. How could the magistrate understand that? How could the magistrate make a decision unless you understand who is Sukoya and what is Sukoya and who is Lajables? So that Maggie used to say that. When I was at university, UE, there was a big argument at one time between Lloyd Best. Lloyd Best was saying, don't raise the salaries of people because you're spoiling the economics. And Dr. Sensei and them were saying, yes, raise the thing. A big argument going on. Should we raise the salaries of people or not? And I remember the language that Lloyd Best used to use. Lloyd Best says, I am incapacitated by my pocket. And Dr. Sensei said, I am suffering from pecuniary strangulation. And there was Shadow saying the same thing. Shadow saying, pressure. The crying tongue is pressure. Anyway, was using the culture. And then I remember Maggie writing on a case. Maggie was saying that the gentleman and a woman was fighting and they came to the court. He beat the woman. And the magistrate asked him why I beat the woman, etc. And he says, I is she keeper. I is she keeper. If it was in Tobago, he would have to say, me as she keeper. And if it was in Sweden, they would say, I am her living companion. And if you went to England, Englishman would say, I am the unmarried husband. Or like in Germany, I am her sexual partner. But the fellow say, I is she keeper. I wanted the magistrates understood. Why I say that? Because Maggie showed where a fella in Trinidad was charged for rape. And he told the magistrate, I can't rape. Magistrate said, why? He said, it's 10 years now a pin on my toe. It's 10 years now a pin on my toe. And yet they charge the man for rape. I hope you see the importance of culture. So I tell my daughter, I say, you can't write law without understanding culture. And but what you have to understand is 10 years of peeing on me too. Same for education. I tell my students, you are not educated unless you are bathed in the refinements of your culture. Notice I said the refinements, eh? You're not educated unless you are bathed in those refinements. That's why in the courthouse sometimes they say, my learned friend. They don't say my educated friend. So the Calypsonian, just like the storyteller, filled with culture. Especially those Brenancy stories that came here from Africa, that we use, Africans use. There's a story in Brenancy when I was a boy, they were talking about beauty. And there was a story between saying, who is prettier, the lion or the monkey? And then they say, lion. Father said, no, monkey. And Sparrow used it in his calypso too. And then Brenancy says, Brenancy bring a donkey and say, look under the donkey, look underneath that donkey. He said, look at beauty that fella got. So we use all these things to show. And the Calypsonian does the same. Being the voice of the people, he uses the same culture. He doesn't wear a wig, but he is the umpire. He doesn't wear a wig, but he uses his nom de plume. And that nom de plume that he uses tells you that this is a man who is taking no sides. That's why he calls himself Lord Beginner. And Sugar Aloes. Sugar Aloes meaning as sweet like sugar, but a bitter like aloes. So he uses this nom de plume. And the nom de plume of the Calypsonian tells you that he's a mediator. He takes no sides in the argument. And all through life, you see him as the umpire, the technician in the mediation dispute. So he meets people with different interests. He meets conflicts. And what he does, he settles the conflicts. Sometimes he creates conflicting situations for you to see and get the picture, and then he mediates. He takes the macro picture and he turns it into a micro one. And then he mediates, and he gives you the picture. And that's what Calypsonians do all the time. They are mediators. So when I was invited here, I say, at last they understand. So he's the politician in the middle road, watching at socialism versus capitalism. He may not call it socialism, but he calls it by different things. He looks at fascism versus democracy. He looks at praising Castro versus not attacking Castro. And all these songs are in calypsos. He looks at the old man versus the new. Like Brigo. Brigo is looking at the new. He says, Brigo says, he ain't call it new. He says, green line falling. Green line falling. Leaving the yellows. In other words, all the young boys killing themselves. Green line falling. They pick Brigo. Brigo cry. He cried because the judge didn't understand him. Green line falling, leaving the yellows. See, he looks at the PNM versus UNC. He doesn't take sides. Some of them take sides, but those who take sides, I tell them, they are not true Calypsonians. True Calypsonians don't take sides. One of the Calypsonians says, he says, this thing called PNM, this thing called UNC, is one set of dotishness to mama guy, you and me, true Calypsonian. So that what I want to do today is to give you just a few calypsos to show you how the Calypsonian is a real mediator. Where sometimes there are no conflicting situations to be mediated, he creates one. He creates one, and he goes so far sometimes to involve his own self in creating the calypso. My mind goes back to Spoiler. Spoiler created one so he could show you. And this one was a magistrate. And I use it, I seldom sing it because there are plenty of magistrates here. And this magistrate was charged for speeding. And he had to try his own case because there's only one magistrate in the district. So Spoiler say, Himself told himself, you are charged for speeding. Himself told himself, the policeman lying. Himself told himself, don't shout, this ain't no sport. And he charged himself for contempt of court. See, it creates a situation. But you know, when I was doing my research, what I actually found on Dr. Phillips, what I actually found is that a man in England, a magistrate in England was actually charged for speeding. He charged himself 30 shillings for speeding. And how I know it is because it was published in The Guardian in 1957 on March the 3rd, my birth date. And I was looking at the papers, and he was actually charged. So Spoiler took that thing quite in England and brought it here. Creating situations. Another example of mediations, showing the arguments for both sides. There are hundreds of calypsonians or calypsos that we could use, but I won't give you too many because of time. But when Kitchener went to England in 1947-48, Kitchener told me, because I asked him, he says, the big question there was, are you an Englishman or are you a Trinidadian? Are you white or are you black? And he saw all the blacks trying to be white. Because when you go up there, you have to sometimes change a little thing to get through. So a lot of people in England were trying to be white so they can get the benefits of being white in England in 47-48. And Kitchener sang, I will give you one verse, you'll understand. Kitchener sang, I hope you can hear the guitar. Your father may be African, your mother may be Norwegian. You pass me, you won't say good night, feeling you already white. Your skin may be a little pink, and that's the reason why you think that the complexion of your face could hide you from the Negroes. No, you can never get away from the fact, if you're not white, you're considered black. Beautiful, eh? You think Shakespeare could write that? Or again in England, in the 40s and in the 50s, etc., Kitchener had the problem when he went up there of people arguing about degrading women. And there were many quarrels in Trinidad in the 50s about degradation of women, how calypsonians were degrading women in their songs, but calling them prostitutes and calling them dogs, etc. All that is in calypso, by the way. But Kitchener felt that mothers were different. And then the argument came and says, are mothers prostitutes? Who is a better woman, a mother or a woman? Who is a better person, a mother or your wife? Argument for so, all in the papers, check the papers in the 50s. And Kitchener sang, here Kitchener. If your mother and your wife are drumming, I want to know which one you will be saving. If your mother and your wife are drumming, I want to know which one you will be saving. Well, for me, I'll hold on to my mother, and my wife will have to excuse Kitchener. I could always get another wife, but I could never get another mother in my life. Beautiful, eh? You think Shakespeare could write that? I can always get another wife, etc. Conflict, it was said, that caused Patrick Solomon to take his son out of the prison in the 60s, and Eric Williams is blamed for it. And people were saying that Eric Williams is wrong, some say he's right, etc. And then Sparrow sang, remember that song about Solomon, etc. Solomon acted, and he brought the part of Eric Williams, and he says, and I say that Solomon must be Minister of External Affairs, and if you don't like it, get the hell out of here. And then there was a situation, I'm going to give you a few examples. A beautiful, the one I love, I can't sing it tonight because I don't want to spoil your nice morals. But there was Elaine and her husband Harry fighting. Elaine and her husband fighting, and they said, Elaine is saying that Harry is demanding too much from her. Elaine is saying that Harry is a sexual beast. And so she decides to leave Harry. But on sober thinking, she decides to call in a mediator And this time she called her mother as the mediator. And her mother said, well, 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 I never see more. Girl, what you're running from is what I am dying for. Is it the mediator? Mothers are good mediators, you know. Especially grandmothers. And then Bryna won the Calypso Monarch Crown in 1962, mediating again. Everybody says power win. And Bryna came up, they were saying at the time, Independence 62, are we Indians? Are we Africans? Should Indians get more on the independence? Should Africans get more? Should we support Kapil Dev? Should we support Eric Williams? That was the argument in 62. I was there. Arguing. And Bryna won the crown. Why? Bryna had one line that won the crown. Bryna says, if you're arguing about African and Indian, and you know who you are, he says, just shave your head like me and they can't tell your nationality. And he won. Douglas came up with the same thing. Douglas said, if you're sending Indians to India and Negroes back to Africa, well, somebody please tell me,